The United States government once paid a man a salary to help catch cybercriminals, while that same man was simultaneously running the largest credit card theft operation in American history. This is not a conspiracy theory, and it is not an exaggeration. Albert Gonzalez was a paid informant for the United States Secret Service, actively cooperating with federal law enforcement, while he was stealing the financial data of approximately 170 million people. To understand how this happened, you have to start with who Gonzalez actually was before any of this began. He was born in Miami in 1981, and by his teenage years, he was already operating in the hacker underground under the online handle Soup Nazi, a reference to a Seinfeld character, and had become a core figure in a criminal marketplace called Shadow Crew. Shadow Crew was not a casual forum. At its peak, it had around 4,000 members and operated as a full-service underground market for stolen credit card data, fake identity documents, and the technical tools needed to commit financial fraud on a large scale. Gonzalez was not just a member. He was an administrator, meaning he helped run the site, vetted new members, and sat at the center of the criminal operation. In July 2003, the Secret Service arrested him in New Jersey after catching him using stolen ATM card data. And this is the moment where the story should have ended simply. Instead, facing serious federal charges, Gonzalez made a decision. He agreed to become a paid government informant. The arrangement made logical sense to the Secret Service. Gonzalez knew Shadow Crew from the inside, had the contacts and credibility in the criminal community, and had the technical understanding that the agency's relatively young cybercrime division badly needed. He was put to work on what would become Operation Firewall, a sting operation designed to take down Shadow Crew from within. Gonzalez wore a wire, fed intelligence to his handlers, and helped Secret Service agents build a virtual private network they used to monitor Shadow Crew members' communications in real time. On October 26, 2004, the Secret Service executed simultaneous raids across 8 countries, arresting 28 people connected to Shadow Crew, and Attorney General John Ashcroft held a press conference calling it a model operation for fighting cybercrime. Gonzalez was not among those arrested. He was the asset who had made it all possible. He was reportedly paid approximately $75,000 per year by the Secret Service, relocated, given a protected operational environment, and continued working with law enforcement. What the Secret Service did not know, what would not emerge until years later, was that Gonzalez had never actually stopped committing crimes. While he was cooperating with the government, while taxpayer money was going into his bank account, he was simultaneously planning and building what would become the most damaging credit card theft operation ever prosecuted in the United States at that time. He maintained a second criminal identity entirely separate from his informant work, communicated with associates through encrypted channels he correctly assessed his handlers were not monitoring, and specifically used the operational knowledge he had gained about law enforcement methods to avoid detection. The first major operation he ran during this period was the breach of TJX Companies, the parent company of T.J. Maxx, Marshalls, Home Goods, and several other major retail chains. The method was something called war driving. Gonzalez and his associates drove around parking lots near retail stores with a laptop and antenna, scanning for wireless networks connected to the store's point-of-sale systems. TJX's wireless systems were using WEP encryption, a standard that had been known to be completely breakable since 2001. Once Gonzalez found the network, he planted malware that intercepted credit card data as it was transmitted unencrypted between the checkout terminals and the store's servers. The stolen data was exported to servers in Eastern Europe, encrypted, and sold in bulk to buyers who manufactured counterfeit cards. TJX did not discover the breach until December 2006, more than a year after it began. And when the full scope was assessed, approximately 45.7 million credit and debit card numbers had been stolen, making it the largest such breach ever disclosed up to that point. The total costs and legal settlements to TJX eventually exceeded $200 million. While investigators were still trying to understand TJX, Gonzalez had already moved on to a far larger target. Heartland Payment Systems was one of the largest credit and debit card processors in the United States, handling transactions for approximately 250,000 businesses. And Gonzalez's team breached it using SQL injection attacks and RAM scraping malware that pulled card data directly from the memory of payment processing computers before it could be encrypted. When Heartland disclosed the breach in January 2009, it estimated that as many as 130 million card numbers may have been compromised, making it the largest credit card breach in American history by an enormous margin, surpassing even TJX. Other confirmed victims of Gonzalez-linked breaches included Hannaford Brothers supermarkets, 7-Eleven, Dave and Buster's, Barnes and Noble, Sports Authority, and BJ's Wholesale Club. The combined total across all operations attributed to Gonzalez and his associates reached approximately 170 million card numbers. He was arrested on May 7, 2008 in Miami, ironically on charges related to the Dave and Buster's breach, one of his smaller operations, and when federal agents searched his apartment, they found approximately $1.65 million in cash buried in the backyard. He was 26 years old. The revelation that followed, that the man responsible for all of this had been on the Secret Service payroll for years, triggered immediate questions about how such a catastrophic oversight failure was even possible. The first part of the answer is that cybercrime informant management was genuinely underdeveloped in the early to mid-2000s. The Secret Service's cybercrime division was expanding rapidly, but it built its oversight protocols around traditional organized crime and drug cases, which are fundamentally different from digital crime, where an operative's entire activity can be hidden behind encryption and foreign servers. The second part of the answer is more uncomfortable. Gonzalez knew exactly what law enforcement could and could not see, because his work as an informant had given him detailed operational knowledge of Secret Service surveillance methods and their gaps. He used that knowledge deliberately, maintaining a strict separation between his two identities and operating through technical channels his handlers had no visibility into. The third factor is institutional. Gonzalez had helped produce one of the Secret Service's biggest cybercrime wins with Operation Firewall, and there may have been a reluctance to subject a highly productive asset to the kind of intensive monitoring that might have uncovered his criminal activity and risked compromising ongoing operations. In March 2010, Gonzalez pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 2 concurrent 20-year federal prison sentences, the longest sentence ever imposed in the United States for cybercrime at that time. The $1.65 million in cash was forfeited to the government. His 2 primary Russian associates, Alexander Suvorov and Maxim Yastremsky, were prosecuted separately, with Yastremsky arrested in Turkey and extradited for sentencing. The consequences of this case stretched far beyond the courtroom. The payment card industry data security standard, which had been introduced in 2004 as a voluntary framework, was substantially tightened in the wake of the TJX and Heartland breaches. The discovery that TJX had been using WEP encryption, broken since 2001, caused industry-wide alarm about the actual state of retail data security. The breaches also accelerated the adoption of chip and PIN EMV cards in the United States, the technology that generates a unique transaction code for each payment, making stolen card data useless for manufacturing counterfeit cards, with the major card networks setting liability shift deadlines for 2015. Heartland's own CEO, Robert Carr, became an unlikely advocate for stronger payment security after the breach, publicly criticizing PCI DSS as insufficient and pushing for end-to-end encryption standards across the industry. The Gonzalez case remains the most dramatic American example of a structural problem that has never been fully solved. Using criminal informants in cybercrime investigations means giving active criminals both protection and insider knowledge of how law enforcement operates. And the only real check against that is intensive ongoing monitoring that is technically and institutionally very difficult to maintain. The Secret Service reviewed its informant management procedures after the case, and it now appears in the curricula of cybersecurity law and policy courses at major universities as the canonical example of what happens when that monitoring fails. Gonzalez reportedly told associates during his criminal years that he had processed enough money to buy an apartment building, but had almost nothing to show for it. The cash, the lifestyle, and the operation were all gone. The people who do have something to show for it are the 170 million cardholders whose financial data was stolen, and the institutions that absorbed hundreds of millions of dollars in losses, all while the government's own cybercrime unit was signing the paychecks of the man responsible. If you want to see another case where a massive system failure produced consequences nobody in charge saw coming, the next video covers exactly that. And the institution involved will surprise you even more than the Secret Service did here.